In the early summer of her previous life, Xiao was unclear about people and mistakenly regarded her greedy and ruthless family as good people, causing her to be sent to the experimental platform and subjected to dissection experiments in order to deprive her of space. Before her rebirth, Xia Chuxiao opened up space in advance, hoarded supplies, planted food, and ventured into the world with billions of supplies. By relying on the memories of his past life, he avoided the deterioration of the weather, killing zombies step by step, occupying planting space, and reaching the pinnacle of his life. The scum mother's family worked hard to please, and Xia Chuxiao shook her face and said, "Get out of here." The actor also followed, "It's also good to take care of your eyes." Invited by various teams, Xia Chuxiao, who already has a team, directly refused, "Not needed, greedy researcher." Xia Chuxiao swears fiercely that the revenge of dissection in her previous life will be avenged in this life. But what's wrong with that naughty young master from the palace family who has broken half of the sky? Did they all say it was a fake? Are you really addicted to acting? Xia Yi, you need to hug, these zombies are ugly. Xia Yi, cover up. These bad people are so terrifying. Xia Yi, I'm hungry, Xia Chuxiao's temples were bulging and jumping, but her face changed too quickly. The next second, she was pressed against the wall, and the man's gaze was burning. I'm hungry. Keywords of the novel. Alien space. She brought back billions of all things without a pop-up window. Alien space. She brought back billions of all things with her. Download the complete text. Alien space. She brought back billions of all things with her. Read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. Rebirth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Rebirth. A bright afterglow fell, and the person on the bed suddenly opened their dazzling eyes like a sea of stars. They propped up the bed board with their hands and sat up slightly, motionless and frozen on the bed. Her confused eyes flickered, her curved eyelashes trembled, and her petite body trembled, as if encountering something terrifying. After a while, her body was no longer trembling, and her clear and bottomless eyes appeared before turning cold. Those pure white hands tightly grasped the bedside blanket, and the tender and childish melon seed face remained cold, revealing an expression of age that should not have been there. Coming back, a childish and cold voice came from her mouth, her cherry lips curling up with a strange smile, and her black and shiny eyes flashed. The grudges of the past life will definitely be repaid by you twice in this life, said a hint of coldness. In Xia Chuxiao's past life, she always felt that she was the happiest. She had a gentle stepsister, kind parents, and everything was for her. Even when the end of the day came, the family was kind to her. She was always blinded by this, and all the supplies in her personal space were taken out for the family to use. Until the supplies were approaching, she was a useless person, leaving only a useless space. The stepsister and stepmother's father gradually mocked and said some piercing words to her with the people in the base. Realizing their changes, Xia Chuxiao began to self-destruct and self-abandon, feeling that what everyone and her stepsisters were saying was right. Later, in order to prevent her stepsisters from looking at her with colored eyes and saying that she was useless, and to prove that she was not useless, she showed them another function of the space that could be planted. Then, she regained the kindness of her stepsisters and planted all the seeds they collected in her space. From that moment on, misfortune was about to come, and the greedy nature of the wolf-like beast's family was revealed. They tried every means to deprive her of space. The family with human faces and animal hearts told her that everything they did to her was fake, and it was at that time that Xia Chuxiao knew that they were good to themselves on the surface, but actually treated her more later. The greedy family, who could not obtain space, sent her directly to the laboratory at the base. Inside, she was experimented like a mouse, facing a group of abnormal researchers. Terrifying days passed day by day, and she endured the pain of cutting her flesh. In the end, she died on that experimental platform. She hated herself for not being able to recognize people clearly. She thought that even if she died, she would become a fierce ghost to retaliate against those people. Unexpectedly, God gave her a chance to be reborn and return to the end of the day. Hee. Time is just right, she still has a lot of time to prepare. At this moment, Xia Chuxiao's coldness flashed through the corners of her eyes turning red. Then, she heard a familiar voice, and her face returned to a tender and harmless look. Chuxiao. Did you wake up? Your sister said she's going to take you to a classmate gathering this weekend, and you should see more about the world, said stepmother Li Chuanlian in a gentle voice, with a hint of sarcasm upon closer inspection. Xia Chuxiao. Xia Chuxiao, why are you so foolish? I can't even hear such obvious sarcasm. Did you get kicked in the head by a donkey? I really lived in vain for so long in my past life. Xia Chuxiao lightly patted her head, her eyebrows slightly moving. Looking back on her past life, there was indeed an alumni union at this time. At that time, she listened to her stepmother's words and made a fool of herself in public at the banquet. Her stepsister didn't blame her, but instead helped her speak. Now, thinking about those words at that time was simply adding fuel to her jealousy. Thinking of this, Xia Chuxiao's emotions fluctuated slightly. It turned out that my stepsister had deliberately harmed her back then. After a long time, Li Chuanlian outside the door seemed impatient when she heard the voice and said, Chuxiao, why haven't you responded? Got it. Mom said, enduring it for a long time before forcing it out. Li Chuanlian chuckled with a hint of pride and said, that's right. Chuxiao. The banquet is in the evening. Do you want to go out with your sister to choose the banquet dress? No need, I still have to rush my homework. Xia Chuxiao politely refused. Yeah, you still have homework. Mom won't bother you anymore. You have better grades than your sister, and if you study hard, you can get into Huaqing University, said Li Chuanlian gently with a sarcastic voice. Li Chuanlian, who turned around outside the door and walked away, had a proud and malicious expression on her face and thought to herself, this little slut is really easy to deceive. Xia Chuxiao looked at the piles of books on the old, unpainted table next to her, and her expression slightly changed. She is a high school student and academic achiever this year. The books she used were from her first year of high school to her third year. Now, it is the stage of preparing for the college entrance examination and reviewing, and the end of her life has come before the college entrance examination. Are you a top student? Picking up her well-preserved book, Xia Chuxiao remembered her stepmother's words earlier, work hard to review and take the Huaqing exam. Her eyebrows furrowed, her head slightly turned, and her small face showed a cold expression. A hee-hee sound came from the corner of her lips. The Xia family can also be considered a prestigious and influential group family. The stepsister is a well-known young lady who naturally attracts attention for her grades, but her grades are outstanding in the group. It turns out that my good stepmothers have had this idea since she even entered this family. This explains why I treated myself so well on the surface before the end of the day. It turned out that it was because of my good grades. As long as I got into Huaqing, this admission letter would definitely not belong to me, but to that disguised good stepsister. I want to turn a sparrow into a phoenix, funny, it's not as you intended. Anyway, the end of the world is coming soon, so there's no time to talk to them. There's plenty of time in the future, and what she needs to do now is how to open up her personal space in advance. But how to open it? Xia Chuxiao walked back and forth in the room with a slight frown on her eyebrows, bit her fingers with her small mouth, and tried to recall how she had stimulated space in her past life. Suddenly, she thought of something that lit up her eyes slightly, and then a chill emanated. I remember my stepmother accidentally stabbed her exposed arm with a fruit knife in her previous life. At that time, she had shed a lot of blood. As a result, my stepmother claimed that she had been sick recently and her eyesight was sometimes blurry, so she accidentally stabbed her. My stepmother also apologized and bought a lot of clothes to compensate her. Her brainless brain believed her stepmother's words. At that time, it was a coincidence that my left hand was injured. It is estimated that my stepmother was like this at the time, and her right hand was used to write about the college entrance examination. Of course, my stepmother would not stab her right hand. Why am I so foolish? The next day, she gained personal space and spent several more days in panic and fear before finally informing her stepmother and her family. So, all she needs to do is stab her left hand to open up space. But this. Xia Chuxiao frowned and stared at her flawless arm, her eyes flashing with a hint of light. Forget it, even if it doesn't work, we have to give it a try. Xia Chuxiao took a fruit knife from the drawer, her face tangled. She was undoubtedly afraid of pain, but she had already tried something more painful in her past life. Now, being afraid of pain is just an instinctive reaction. Looking at her left arm, holding the knife in her right hand and trembling slightly, her heart trembled as she couldn't take action. The impression of being cut in her past life was too profound for her, and her mind couldn't calm down for a moment. Forget it, forget it. Just like being bitten by mosquitoes, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Portable Space. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Portable Space. A splashing sound of fresh blood. Xia Chuxiao bit her lips and almost screamed, feeling pain coming from her arms. The sharp knife placed aside had bloodstains, and blood gradually flowed out of the wound, dripping down to the ground. Hiss, it really hurts, but even in pain, it's not as painful as in previous lives. After calming down, she took the hemostatic medicine prepared on the side and was about to apply it when a miraculous phenomenon appeared. She watched as the wound continued to bleed and her arm became intact, without blinking. Then a butterfly-like imprint appeared at the location of the just wound. Xia Chuxiao was slightly stunned, touching the butterfly mark back and forth. Okay, that's it. I remember there wasn't such a phenomenon in my past life. Is it the butterfly effect? But this butterfly mark is really beautiful. Xia Chuxiao sat down on the chair, her eyelashes curved and trembling slightly, her eyes staring at the butterfly mark and muttering. Xia Chuxiao's already white hand had an extra butterfly on her arm, which looked even better. After thinking for a while, Xia Chuxiao simply didn't want to. Anyway, the space has already been opened, and everything else is not important. Then give it a try first. Xia Chuxiao held a book in her hand, and with a movement of her mind, the book disappeared. In her consciousness, she saw that the book was in space, and with a movement of her mind, the book returned to her hand. So Xia Chuxiao tried to collect things through the air again, and the book in front of her disappeared. She tried back and forth, only to find that she could only collect things through the air within about 7 or 8 meters, and if she exceeded it, she could not collect things into the space. This spatial effect is actually much more powerful than in the previous life. In the past life, it was not possible to collect items in separate spaces. Like ordinary spatial abilities, it could only store items, which added 2 additional functions: preservation and planting. It was precisely because of these 2 functions that both the family and the human nature of the base caused her death. Relaxing her thoughts, Xia Chuxiao's nimble black eyes began to scrutinize the space. It was neither big nor small, better than before. Perhaps it was because she had started earlier or because she was reborn. There is a beautiful silver-tiled house in the space, which looks a bit mysterious. Through the type of 1 living room and 2 bedrooms inside the silver-tiled house, the hall is empty with nothing, and the floor is smooth and shiny, as if made of some kind of crystal. The first room has a simple wooden bed and a table cabinet, which looks like a simple room overall. The second room is empty and has nothing. There is a well not far from the silver-tiled house, and there are several small and medium-sized fields next to it. Next to the fields, there is a very large tree, a ginkgo tree, which is very beautiful. The area of the ginkgo tree is a grassland, and flowers can be faintly seen. There are so many visible flowers, and some invisible ones are covered by clouds and mist. The overall space looks much more pleasing, just like a small world. It's really a place where people can live, Xia Chuxiao blurted out upon seeing this. Suddenly thought of something. My eyes lit up. There is a room and a bed, so. After confirming my thoughts, a mysterious halo appeared in the space as soon as my thoughts moved. Xia Chuxiao looked clearly at everything in the space, her eyes flickering slightly, and her heart was excited. There is a layer of clouds in the space, with oxygen that can be breathed in. The sky is blue and white, with only the sun and night missing. It is simply a secluded small world. Although there are no mysterious things like Ling Quan wash marrow pill in the female protagonist's space as mentioned in the novel, these are still okay. It's better than nothing. With this hanging space, what else would she be afraid of in the apocalypse? When encountering danger, you can directly hide in the space, but it also depends on the situation. Of course, you won't be foolish enough to say that the space has come and expose it like in previous lives. It's much better than the space in my previous life. Let's try planting something first. Xia Chuxiao looked at the fields, dragged her chin, rolled her eyes, pursed her lips, and her gaze flickered slightly. Then he flashed out of space and secretly took some vegetable seeds from the warehouse on the first floor, and then started drying the agricultural tools. A pair of mothers were discussing in the hall. Mommy. Did Xia Chuxiao, that slut, agree? She wore a majestic long dress on a charming woman, and Xia Chuxiao said with thick eyebrows and big eyes in front of her, coquettish tone. Agreed, the gorgeous woman looked at her slender daughter, feeling very pleased, and said in a spoiled voice. Xia Chuxiao listened to her happy expression and sarcastically said, I'll definitely make that slut look good tonight. Li Chunlian smiled at her words and then reminded, Yaya. Didn't I tell you before? I can't say it too much here. It's not good to be heard by servants. Mommy. What are you afraid of? The servants in the entire villa are all our people. Even if they dare not say anything, Xia Chuxiao's proud and confident expression was written on her face. Yes, my daughter is amazing. Li Chunlian smiled, and the faint spots and fine lines on her face didn't affect her expression at this moment. With such a proud and intelligent daughter, she was waiting to enjoy her happiness. Xia Chuxiao was praised even more arrogantly. She took her hand and confidently said, Mom, you can wait and enjoy yourself. I will definitely marry into a wealthy family. Tonight is the chance. Okay, Mom, wait, however, Yaya, Mom still needs to remind you to be careful at home, just be afraid, Li Chunlian patted her hand and said. Mom, don't worry. That slut must be studying in the room now. What else will she hear when she enters the learning state, and besides, the sound insulation in the room is good, she will definitely not hear anything, Xia Chuxiao said confidently with a sweet smile. Good, Yaya, what you just said about being able to marry into a wealthy family is true. Of course it's true. And he will also come tonight, Xia Chuxiao flashed through her mind as the tall figure in a suit blushed. Bai Ziyue, the eldest son of the Bai family, also known as Udashao, has been studying medicine since childhood and is known as a smart genius with a beautiful appearance. His medical skills are impressive. It's difficult to find someone who can treat Udashao. Arrange for 1 or 2 months. Even for more than 6 months. I must have you. When Li Chunlian saw her like this, she knew that her precious daughter had a goal. From childhood to adulthood, it was her talented and intelligent daughter who came up with good ideas and succeeded every time. It seems that she is not far from becoming a wealthy mother. Law. Baby daughter, how could you still let Xia Chuxiao attend the banquet for such a good thing? Why did Mom get here? You're confused. Calling her to go is certainly making her look embarrassed. Tonight, so many famous families, young ladies, and young masters are gathered together. If she makes a fool of herself, ha ha ha, that's really funny. A hint of calculation flashed in the corner of Xia Chuxiao's eyes, and she thought to herself. Xia Chuxiao, you dare to argue with me. Little did they know, their words were heard. In the room, Xia Chuxiao quietly listened to her conversation without any expression, and a glimmer of light flashed in her eyes. Make a fool of yourself. Ha! What a mother and daughter who put in a lot of effort. Then she will accompany her to perform this scene well. My sister, I hope you're ready, Xia Chuxiao said with a sharp gaze and a wicked smile on her lips. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Banquets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Banquets. Xia Zhengrong is the president of Xia Group, which mainly deals with electrical appliances and clothing. Xia Zhengrong's ex-wife, her mother, died as early as she was born. Later, she was raised in a welfare home and was not brought back until her freshman year. Xia Zhengrong's current wife is her stepsister's mother, who entered the summer residence before she could pick her up. She pretended to be harmless and looked at the ambitious father in front of her. Why didn't she realize that he was just an ambitious person before? Chuxiao. What's wrong? Xia Fu looked at her with a kind expression and asked angrily. Dad, it's okay, reading is a bit tiring and distracting, Xia Chuxiao said obediently and weakly as usual, looking timid as she lowered her head and slowly chewed on her food. Sister, you're really amazing. There are so many days left until the college entrance examination, so hardworking. I'm not that diligent. Xia Chuxiao's words sounded like praise on the surface, but in reality, they were sarcastic like fools. Zhengrong. Chuxiao is working hard. She got up early this morning to read. Yaya. You can learn from her sister. Xia's mother, sitting next to her father, immediately spoke up when she heard what she meant. Yes, Mom said it very well. I will learn from my sister. She quietly listened to the mother and daughter talking to each other in the restaurant, without affecting her eating. Your sisters can get along so well, so my father can rest assured that he can help in the future. Xia's father said happily. Upon hearing these words, Xia Chuxiao's lowered eyes flickered and she thought to herself, did this ambitious father not participate in the job exchange? Although it was like this, after the end of the day, it still turned into something heartless and ruthless. By the way, I heard that there will be a classmates' banquet in Xuanya tonight. Yes, Dad, Xia Chuxiao said with a smile on her face. Then take your sister with you. After Xia's father finished speaking, he said to her again, Chuxiao. I'll follow your sister at night, and I won't stay at home all day. Let's get to know more about the world with your sister. Xia Chuxiao nodded sweetly and said, okay, Dad. Later, Xia Chuxiao refused to be outdone and said, Dad, I will take my sister and get to know people who understand the world. Finally, Xia Chuxiao looked at her with a gentle smile. Okay, Xia's father looked at her wearing a disheveled white loose-sleeved shirt with a loose black pair of school pants. Some people thought she was not doing well at the Xia family when they saw it. The face-saving Xia's father suddenly furrowed his brow and took out a card from the bag held by his assistant. Then he kindly said, Chuxiao, you are almost 18 years old, and you are also considered a girl. You can take this card, which costs 100,000 yuan, and I will give it to you every month. If you have clothes or bags you like, buy them yourself, and dress up more. Dad, I have clothes to wear, don't have to buy them anymore. Xia Chuxiao's weak voice came out, and her drooping eyes flashed brightly. Upon hearing her words, Xia's father turned to Li Chuanlian with a displeased expression. He didn't mind making small moves in his daily life, as it was related to the appearance of the Xia family. Li Chuanlian looked at Xia Chuxiao with a clever mind and smiled, saying, Chuxiao. Dad can take it for you. Buy more beautiful clothes. But didn't you say you should be diligent, frugal, and not buy clothes frequently? Li Chuanlian, who was taken down by her, stiffened for a moment before being glared fiercely by Xia Fu. Why didn't this little slut listen to her? She said slowly, Mom said that's right, Mom didn't say you should wear such clothes. Xia Chuxiao beside her also said, Sister, Mom wants you to save some things and cultivate good habits. If you wear these clothes for a long time, you should change them. Yes, Yaya is right. Sister will accompany you to Xiao's store another day to pick clothes. Take this card, Yaya also has one. The mother and daughter sang in unison and said. Okay, thank you, sister, and also thank you, Dad. Xia Chuxiao nodded obediently and said, taking the card given by Xiao's father. That's right, Xia Fu said with a smile. After the family finished their meal, their busy schedules dispersed. In the gorgeous room, Xia Chuxiao angrily threw a pillow and her eyes were wide open. After a moment, a woman pushed the door and walked in. Xia Chuxiao said to the woman who walked in. Mom, why don't you stop Dad from giving her a card? What do you know? Calm down a bit. Just let her wander for a few days. Mom will help you find a way. My dear daughter. The most important thing now is the dinner party tonight. Mom has arranged a makeup artist for you, it should be almost here, Li Chunlian said as she looked at her. Okay, Mom, you're so kind. Xia Chuxiao hugged the woman and acted coquettishly, feeling particularly excited at the thought of seeing him handsome soon. She insisted on getting him. In one of the neighboring rooms, Xia Chuxiao sneered, what a foolish mother and daughter. They still want to fish for a golden sun. Law. Those with strength and insight will take notice of her, unless a scumbag takes notice of her. That's right, her hearing is so good and she can hear so far, thanks to her ability to stimulate hearing assistance. This should be the reason for opening the space in advance. Xia Chuxiao scanned the shopping order on her phone, her eyes flickering slightly, and a message popped up that the balance on the card was instantly 0. At exactly 6 o'clock, the sky gradually turned black, and the night market in Yangzhou was very beautiful. Night stalls and snacks began to be set up on the streets, and high-end and gorgeous brand stores were no exception. The Star Emperor Hui 5-star luxury hotels located in the center of the city are all famous young gentlemen who come and go. Red paved floors, luxurious doors, luxury cars often stop one by one, but only young masters and socialites come out one after another. Xia Chuxiao was dressed in a gorgeous evening gown, with a yellow fishtail-shaped suspender that accentuated her delicate figure. She chatted with several gorgeous young ladies. Yaya, didn't you say your sister would come? Why don't you see anyone? Yeah. I also want to get to know each other. Xia Chuxiao smiled and said, she has something to delay, so she will take it slower. It's so mysterious, I'm afraid she wouldn't dare to come. After all, with so many heads and faces, she shouldn't be afraid, said a woman in a princess-shaped white evening gown, her voice not loud or low, and it happened that everyone who was close to them in the banquet hall heard it, arousing the curiosity of other socialites. All right, don't say that, my sister will definitely come, Xia Chuxiao said gently after glancing at the location upstairs. In a luxurious pavilion upstairs. Several handsome men roast about the famous ladies from time to time. On the chair, there was a handsome man dressed in a burgundy black suit, who was even more handsome than the others. He held a glass of red wine in his slender hand, shook it a few times, and slowly took a sip from his lips. His noble and elegant movements did not diminish the aura emanating from his body compared to the others sitting there. Listening to the conversation of several people, with a look of lack of interest, he continued to take a sip of red wine. Look, what did they say about Xia come out? It's Xia Chuxiao, oh, yes, when can your forgotten memory be changed? The man in the white suit shook his head. Gong Yuhan lifted his eyes and glanced askance, suddenly feeling a surge of wine in his hand. Who said I dare not come? A crisp voice came from the banquet hall. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Gong Yuhan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error, please try another translator. Chapter 5. Utilization. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 5 Utilization. Miss Xia Chuxiao's drooping eyes flickered. His tone is quite meaningful, isn't it? Sure enough, this palace is unusually cold. Gong Yi is really leisurely and elegant. Why don't you go and accompany your beautiful women? Or do you have any tasks? As soon as she spoke, Gong Yuhan's face remained unchanged, his eyebrows cold and his eyes flickering with a cold light. His whole aura changed again, especially when he heard the words mission. He gradually approached her. Xia Chuxiao looked at the enlarged version of her face and noticed something. Her eyebrows furrowed slightly and she moved to the side. Miss Xia, where do you want to go? Xia Chuxiao felt a dangerous aura on her face, and her expression suddenly became clear. Upon hearing his words, she stared at him with caution. Where are you going? Look, it's dancing. Xia Chuxiao shifted the topic and felt that the thing around her waist was not there. She breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. At this moment, the lights in the banquet hall were dim, leaving only the central light for dancing. With the sound of songs, some people began to dance. At the table in the corner, Xia Chuxiao was thinking about how to take the opportunity to slip away. This palace Yuhan is too dangerous, even more dangerous than she imagined. It seems better not to get involved with him. This kind of person is naturally strong and is expected to survive for a long time in the apocalypse. Just as I was about to stand up, suddenly my waist was hugged and I fell straight into an embrace. Hey! Gong Yuhan, what are you doing? Let go of me. Xia Chuxiao reacted and struggled to break free, her bright eyes staring at him angrily. Be good, don't move. Moving, I don't know what I can do next. Gong Yuhan's threat came to her ear with a teasing tone, and his breath filled her face. Xia Chuxiao blushed and couldn't bear it anymore. She must have jumped herself into the fire pit. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have started chatting up randomly. What are you doing? She said quietly, motionless, with a hint of anger. Where are you from? Gong Yuhan said in a cold voice, his mouth blowing air in her ear from time to time. Which side of the people? What the hell does that mean? Her mind was foggy at the moment, thinking about the conversation she had with him just now. Gong Yuhan was stunned and silent when he saw her eyes. His heart was cold, and there was a hint of loss in his eyes. He felt the person in his arms, and his eyes flickered slightly. Are you really? If she is, that's all she can do. What suddenly came to her mind? My eyes lit up. She was regarded as his enemy by Gong Yuhan, or rather, I am from his enemy's side. Damn it. This guy is really weird, he's doubting himself. Surprisingly suspect her. Xia Chuxiao is so angry. Unable to resist her outburst, she turned around and pressed him onto the chair. Gong Yi, I don't know what you're talking about. But I assure you that I am not the person on either side as you said. I am me. Xia Chuxiao raised her eyes and spoke in a firm tone towards his eyes, clutching the collar of his clothes with an imposing presence. His breath just now was about to kill himself, she could feel it. If you want to be yourself, there is no door. Humph. Although the lights were set to dim for a while and the facial expressions changed, she could still see him clearly, and the two of them just stared at each other for a few seconds. At this moment, Gong Yuhan stared at her steadily, and her behavior refreshed his understanding of her. Bai Zimu has no communication with you. What do you suggest he wants? Gong Yuhan's makes one's ears sound pregnant. Xia Chuxiao, who is so angry, is not a playboy anymore. My mother has nothing to do with him. What I hinted at was you, who knew he was blocking your way. Gong Yuhan's face suddenly flashed, and the corners of his mouth were intentionally or unintentionally curved. Are you interested in me? Xia Chuxiao looked at him and asked herself, her eyes wide open. Yes, I have a crush on you. Gong Yuhan looked at her with a mischievous smile rising from the corner of his mouth, and then transformed back into a playboy's appearance, his face slowly approaching. Where do you like me? Xia Chuxiao felt him getting closer and closer to her. She was about to call him a hooligan, but was stopped by his words. If you shout, I guarantee your stepsisters will know what you look like. And your posture, where a strong woman dominates a beautiful man without any consideration, you're really shameless. Xia Chuxiao glared at him and gritted her teeth. I'm moving. Do I have something even more shameless to try? Gong Yuhan's words almost made her want to hit someone. This is simply a blatant flirtation. It's so despicable. Double-faced male. Xia Chuxiao stared at him and saw him drinking from time to time. Suddenly, something came to her mind and her eyes lit up. The Gong family is so thick, and his parents are senior management supervisors and young soldiers. Even if he takes off his disguise, he can at least be considered a third-level soldier or something like that. So there must be some gunpowder weapons, and if she can get them, then the apocalypse can be used to deal with those zombies. Just think about it and be happy. Gong Yuhan casually paid attention to the person in his arms, and seeing her small expression, he knew what she was calculating. She's such a mischievous little beauty. Xia Chuxiao's eyes flashed brightly as she looked at someone and pursed her lips, asking directly, Gong Yuhan, what are you doing now? Upon hearing her words, Gong Yuhan's sharp eyes caught a glimpse of the brilliance in her eyes. With a wicked smile on his face, he lifted his lips and said, Well, what does it mean? I'm asking you, you're already 26 years old, and after all, you're from a military academy. You should have some kind of job, right? For example, what kind of troops? Xia Chuxiao raised her eyebrows and whispered softly. I want to know. Gong Yuhan's gaze flickered slightly. You're not my person. Gong Yuhan's meaning is very clear, only he can tell. Xia Chuxiao directly changed to the next question, but did not reply to each one. She originally intended to provide some clues, but the approximate location was also acceptable. The dinner party is coming to an end, she can't wait like this. She's not afraid of being seen by others, but she doesn't want to waste time anymore. Xia Chuxiao turned her head and looked up at his handsome face. Gong Yuhan seemed to have anticipated it long ago, lowered her head, and the two of them looked at each other. Gong Yuhan, what do you think of me? Her words made Gong Yuhan's wine glass pause slightly, and Guzhua said coldly. Not much, now it looks average. Upon hearing his words, Xia Chuxiao was displeased and said, what does it mean to be average? Just now, I could crush the entire venue and slow you down. After speaking, they approached him and were so close that their noses were almost touching each other. You shouldn't be my boyfriend. It doesn't matter if you divide your current girlfriend now or not. Xia Chuxiao's mischievous expression blinked. Gong Yuhan was stunned and immediately regained his composure. A smile appeared on his face, and a magnetic voice came from his mouth with some playfulness. Why? Damn it. They are all so straightforward and still refuse to agree. It seems you want me to force you to comply, isn't it? All right. As you wish. Next second. Xia Chuxiao took the wine glass from his hand with one hand and pressed him down with the other. If you don't agree, you have to agree. Otherwise, I'll ruin what happened to you tonight. Quickly say yes. Gong Yuhan looked at her and curled his lips, saying, Okay, I agree. Xia Chuxiao said, I agree, not you. Do you understand? Understood. Xia Chuxiao suddenly felt relieved and said, that's right. From today on, you will be my person. Xia Chuxiao smiled and reached out to pinch his face. That's how I'm satisfied. The feel is good. It's also nice to have the most handsome boyfriend in the country before the end of the day. Anyway, after the end of the day, no one knew anyone and just dumped him. Thinking this way, she felt even more at ease in her heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Collecting Materials 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Collecting Materials 1. That's settled then. Come on, give Xia Yi a smile. Xia Chuxiao smiled and said, this way, she will have a way to find excuses to leave that family and do things, ahaha. Xia Chuxiao stared at his face, reached out her hand to his face, and did what she wanted to do. She smiled and sighed inwardly, you're really handsome. You don't have to be fair, you've made a lot of money. Truly handsome, no wonder so many beautiful girls have been captivated. Xia Chuxiao's murmuring voice was heard by Gong Yuhan. Gong Yuhan let her reckless hand go without getting angry at all. Looking at her, a hint of softness appeared in the corners of his eyes, even he himself didn't know. But your face should have been touched by many girlfriends, right? Xia Chuxiao suddenly thought of something and paused her hand, saying. You are the first. Upon hearing his words, Xia Chuxiao looked up and was slightly stunned. Isn't it? Shouldn't we all be touched after having sex with so many women? The lights lit up, the singing stopped, and the dancing young master Minghuan stopped moving. However, Xia Chuxiao and Gong Yuhan were illuminated by the lights, and many people looked over. Xia Chuxiao reacted and was about to push him away when she suddenly heard something. Her eyebrows furrowed and her face changed. Not good. Quickly arched up from his arms, his hands resting on his neck, while his head was blocked by her body. In just 1 second, a momentary pain came and Xia Chuxiao slipped down, feeling blood flowing out of the corner of her mouth immediately. Gong Yuhan sensed something and reacted extremely quickly. Almost as soon as she fell, he quickly rolled over several tables and dodged several gunshots. Gong Yuhan felt hot blood flowing out of his hands, his face full of worry, and a sudden fear in his heart, as if he had lost something precious. From that moment on, he truly understood something. Xiao, don't sleep, you'll be fine soon. Gong Yuhan looked at her pale face with a gentle gaze and a gentle voice, with a hint of pleading. Pain. Xia Chuxiao's consciousness was still clear at this moment, but the pain on her shoulder made her numb. But this pain is nothing. It's not as good as in my past life in the banquet hall. There was a scene of chaos and screams. The timid socialites and young masters were all frightened and panicked. Ah! Help, don't kill me, she could clearly hear screams and panics in the banquet hall. Several subtle and almost silent bullets swept over. Gong Yuhan's eyes were cold and cold. He quickly dodged her with one hand and then grabbed the gun with the other hand, saying, ping 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 ping. Xia Chuxiao bit her lips, her eyes flickering slightly as she scanned him. Gong Yuhan has completely transformed into a different person. A few hurried sounds came, followed by batches of footsteps behind. Yi, Gong Yi, are you okay? Bai Zimu and Nan Gongling, who were leading the way, saw the two of them and asked with concern, with a slight difference in the corners of their eyes. I'll leave it to you here, not a single one left, Gong Yu said in a cold, frosty voice with a hint of anger, exuding a cold and domineering aura. Gong Yuhan held her and quickly walked into the banquet hall. In a luxurious suite. The person leaning on the bed had a pale face, half-squinted eyes, and felt supported by a pair of strong hands. Xia Chuxiao leaned against him along his path, and at this moment, her whole body was covered to death, leaving behind the location of the wound and the head, and waves of pain came from her. Xia Chuxiao frowned. Hiss, pain, a faint, soft and powerless voice came from her mouth. Although she had tried something even more painful than now, she still screamed pain now. Gong Yuhan's eyes flashed with a hint of heartache, and his cold gaze swept over Bai Ziyue, lifting her lips and saying, gently wipe. When Bai Ziyue heard his words while dealing with the wound, her hands became slightly lighter and her heart felt very different. What kind of situation is this? How did he feel that Second Master had changed? He saw tenderness in Second Master's eyes. He only performed one surgery on the customer and came back like this. This is still the Second Master he knows. It has been 2 days since Xia Chuxiao returned from Gong Yuhan's family, and their relationship was directly announced on the same day. This speed is really fast, and now it has spread throughout the entire city of Yangzhou. Hey! Gong Yuhan's reputation has indeed received a different response. Xia Chuxiao stared at the land where she had planted vegetables. At this moment, the land where she had planted vegetables had already grown green seedlings. In 2 days, they had grown the length of a finger, so they could be eaten in a week. Xia Chuxiao's eyes narrowed with a smile, and she lifted her lips to mutter, "It's really a treasure trove." It didn't have this effect in her past life. It's much faster than using herbal medicine. The seeds taken out of the warehouse at home have already been planted by her, and she is going to pick them up. If there are too few, Auntie will definitely be noticed. "It seems like we need to buy more seeds," she said at the beginning of summer. Xiao's eyes flashed with a hint of brilliance. Ding! Her phone rang, and she picked it up and flipped through the page. It was the supplies she had purchased, including daily necessities and food, bread, biscuits, noodles, dried meat, and so on. The 100,000 yuan she received was only enough to buy these, which was far from enough. She planned to personally purchase some food faster. Today, she always felt her eyelids twitching, feeling that the end of the world might come earlier. She had already rented a warehouse when purchasing supplies, and now she only needs to go and collect them. Xia Chuxiao changed into a sharp sportswear, with a simple bun head, a backpack on her back, and a pair of black sunglasses. She didn't affect her temperament at all, nor was she tacky, appearing fresh and cute in her outfit. Xiao. Have fun, it's okay to come back later, said stepmother Li Chuanlian with a gentle smile on her face as soon as she heard that Gong Yuhan had invited her out to play. Xia Chuxiao looked at this greedy stepmother and thought of how they treated her in their past lives. She thought to herself, hee. I'll accompany you to perform more. Since Gong Yuhan's announcement, her good stepmother and Xia Zhengrong have been very supportive. Having such a great big golden leg hug certainly agreed, which can be considered pushing her out. Now she knows what their family's intentions are. Well, then I'll leave. Xia Chuxiao smiled and nodded, just as she lifted her foot and walked away. Xia Mianya's good stepsister slowly walked over and greeted her with a smile. Sister. Why don't you take me with you? Xia Qianya said with a thick face, isn't that appropriate? Yuhan, he. Xia Chuxiao looked weak and blinked, saying. Okay then. Sister, I heard there is a limited edition bracelet from a famous brand in the world. I really like it. My brother.in.law should be able to buy it. I really like my younger sister, you see, Xia Chuanya said in a gentle and delicate voice. Xia Chuxiao could see through what was on her mind at a glance, and a timid voice came out of her mouth. Sister, I'll do my best. Thank you, sister. Xia Qianya pretended to smile, with a hint of jealousy flashing around her eyes. She remembered fiercely in her heart. This little slut is really lucky. Last time at the banquet, she not only missed the trick but also got involved with Gong Xiao. But that's also good. Apart from having a lot of money, the young master of the palace is notorious for his ruthlessness, ferocity, and evil spirit. He's just a promiscuous young master, and even if that slut follows him, he'll end up dying. In a luxurious private room, several beautiful men dressed in different styles sat on luxurious sand chairs, their eyes fixed on one person, who was slightly more beautiful than them. Bai Zimu dragged his chin and his expression showed disbelief as he pursed his lips. Second master, are you serious? Gong Yuhan's eyebrows furrowed, and his determined gaze flashed, lifting his lips. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Collection of Materials 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Collection of Materials 2. In the airport service hall, people came and went, and there were people sitting on service chairs. A sweet and professional message spread throughout the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, passengers flying to 1822 BU are requested to prepare for boarding. Xia Chuxiao was sitting on a plane heading to Hainan, holding a notebook filled with words about the supplies she wanted to purchase. That's right, she used Gong Xiao, and being with him was also for the convenience of going out, purchasing supplies, and collecting supplies. So this time, she had already calculated and booked the plane ticket. Hainan City has many delicious foods, including seafood, noodles, and rice. The specialty fragrant rice there is both delicious and cheap. Her first step is to go to Hainan and collect all the food and delicacies. When the end of the world comes, facing the first crisis of humanity, it is food and supplies, so she needs to prepare before the end of the day. In my past life, I had supplies. Although I didn't go hungry much, I couldn't bear to watch other survivors go hungry. Of course, she didn't have any money before, but now she has become a little rich woman. Buying some low-priced goods in bulk is still enough. That Gong Yuhan is really generous and wealthy. He gave her a whole billion yuan, saying it was pocket money for himself, spending it casually, and even saying that he would ask him for it after spending it all. If it weren't for the end of the world, she wouldn't have accepted it, but as the end of the world approaches, how can she purchase goods without money or a house? The goods she has taken into the space alone are simply not enough, and this 1 billion yuan is certainly accepted. Did his previous girlfriends all be tempted by him with money like this? Hey! No wonder his reputation is so bad, and there are so many people who are eager to climb up to him. It is indeed the temptation of money. But with his mutated personality, I don't know which face is the real him. Xia Chuxiao raised her eyebrows and thought to herself. Forget it, I don't think about it anymore, what about him? As long as the apocalypse falls, she and he will no longer have any connection. At the Haijia market, Xia Chuxiao drove a newly purchased car to a wholesale seafood market. There were various types of fish, shrimp, shellfish, etc., all of which were fresh on the market. Her goal was to buy dry goods, and of course, fresh fish and other products were also included. A boss walked out and told her how much dried seafood she needed. The two chatted for a while, and Xia Chuxiao said calmly after listening to the boss's introduction. Boss, I'll take all the seafood from your wholesale market. Okay, the seafood seller readily agreed. Boss, help me deliver to this address. Xia Chuxiao gave the address and didn't stop, driving to the next destination. Xiangmi is a local specialty in Hutown, Hainan City. Hutown is not far from this city and can be reached by car in an hour, almost half an hour. Her goal is to enter the village to purchase the fragrant grains of the villagers, which are rice. The reason for saying this is because the rice in this area is fragrant. In order to avoid overthinking, there won't be too much noise in the village's purchase, and the villagers only consider it for her to purchase and open a store. She hired several large karaoke trucks, gave them some deposits, and asked them to purchase villagers with fragrant rice from each household in several villages. She went to purchase various vegetables, seeds, etc., and finally bought several batches of local chickens and ducks from the countryside. It took a whole half day, and Xiangmi has almost acquired it, but it's far from enough. However, we can only temporarily collect so much for now. She still has a lot of supplies to purchase, and calculated that the time is approaching the end of the world, with about 10 days left. After collecting the dried seafood that was delivered and entering the space, it was getting dark and it was impossible to go back. She just casually opened a room in a relatively ordinary hotel and will have to buy some supplies in Hainan tomorrow. Xia Chuxiao realized that a vacant room in the space was filled with fragrant rice. Half of the materials she had received earlier in the morning were also neatly placed in the hall, making it comfortable and pleasing to the eye. This is another function of the space. With just one movement of her mind, the materials can be neatly stacked. This feature can be described as refreshing in just one word. Hee. Xia Chuxiao saw another room with a bed, and a glimmer of light flashed from the corner of her eyes. Space is swinging. Let's decorate this place. Having a warm and clean room in the apocalypse is also good. At this moment, this scene was broadcasted on TV, and the sweet voice of the host inside came out. Good evening, family and friends of the audience. What you are listening to now is the Urban TV radio station. Yesterday, a shocking event occurred. A middle-aged man in his 40s suddenly went crazy in a nursing home and ate a young man he lived with. There was nothing left that everyone could think of. From the surveillance footage, it can be seen that this middle-aged man's face began to change, especially his eyes. Then, like taking some stimulants, he pounced on another sleeping man. At present, the middle-aged uncle has been detained, and the hospital's result is that the man was taken an unknown drug, which caused him to go crazy and lose consciousness. Speaking of which, we have come up with several cases from the past few days one by one. A regular pet house's dog also experienced the same situation as this man. The dog went crazy and bit the owner, but fortunately, the owner was rescued by one of his apprentices in time. Currently, the owner is in the hospital recovering from injuries, which is strange to say. Recently, some netizens have said that the end of the day is coming, and there are many posts about the end of the day in storing supplies. Audiences, what do you think? But it's time for our anchor to save some. When Xia Chuxiao heard this, her eyebrows and eyes furrowed slightly, and a glimmer of wisdom flashed in her eyes. Zombies, it seems that we need to go shopping early in the next few days. Exercising the body is also necessary, and dealing with zombies is essential for physical and mental strength. Currently, she has only activated hearing abilities, and whether it will stimulate other abilities is still unknown. Xia Chuxiao entered the space and changed into a workout suit. She clenched her tang sword and began training to chop and kill items. Although she had already mastered the technique of chopping and killing zombies in her past life, it was far from enough. It would be even better if there were gun training. Gong Yuhan sat on the luxurious retro black and white sofa, staring at his phone. His handsome face was heavy and composed. Bai Zimu, who was beside him, saw his expression that was neither angry nor noticeable. He pouted and said, "Brother Han, you see, I've already told you that the little beauty is interested in your money." Surprisingly, 50 million yen was spent in just one day. I thought she was different. It seems that, feeling the chill rising in the hall, Bai Ziyu beside him patted his silly younger brother, gesturing for him to stop talking. Gong Yuhan raised his eyes and coldly scanned the two of them. The cold breath rushed towards his face, and Bai Zimu's body trembled. He closed his mouth, scratched his head with his hand, and looked bewildered. What did he say wrong again? Bai Ziyu glanced at this foolish little brother. Gong Yuhan's eyebrows were cold, and when he saw the picture on his phone, a picture came to his mind. The chill gradually faded away, and his lips curled up. Where is she now? Brother Han, that little beauty, no, it's sister.in.law. She's in Hainan City, he said to Bai Zimu with a serious expression. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Collecting Materials 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Collecting Materials 3 Gong Yuhan paused for a moment and said. I'll give you the meeting tomorrow afternoon. Also, help me transfer a plane over here. The Bai Zimu brothers exchanged a glance and asked, what is he doing? No matter what they do, they both obey him and do it. Gong Yuhan's eyes flickered with a hint of light, and his sexy lips moved. Xiao, you're too disobedient. Since I met her, my heart has been moving a lot. Perhaps this can be considered as the most cliché love at first sight by him. Her shrewd and mischievous appearance floated in her mind. The next morning. Before dawn, she simply dressed up and had breakfast before starting to plan the remaining items for shopping, such as gasoline, daily necessities, clothes, pants, shoes, socks, blankets, etc. Especially warm clothes. I remember that not long after the end of the world, the weather began to cool down. I have experienced that kind of coldness in my past life, and it was so cold that life was unbearable. I bought a few more cars, it's not possible to have one in the end. Then she went to the neighboring city to buy many convenient snacks, such as chickens, ducks, geese, pigs, cows, and sheep. These poultry and animals can be kept in the space, or she only found out through experiments that they can be kept in the space. She also purchased more than 10 sets of furniture, appliances, and generators. Watching the amount slowly decline until there were only a few thousand yuan left all over my body, I realized that this spending was really fast. In the morning, what should be bought is also about the same, but far from enough. In an ordinary dining room, Xia Chuxiao looked at the amount on her phone, then used her mind to look at the piled-up items in a corner of the space, and let out a soft sigh. Muttering, a little rich woman instantly turns back into poverty. These few hundred yuan won't take a few days, it seems like we can only go back. Xia Chuxiao has a fragrant taste, which is the aroma of the food brought by the boss. She immediately put down her chin-propped hand and picked up chopsticks to eat. Others see. Oh my goodness. This little sister is so cute. I noticed it when she walked in just now. That small melon seed face is tender, and those charming eyes are bright and spiritual. That slender figure has everything it should have. Her appearance is really high, she looks better than any other celebrity. The key is cuteness. That's right, even eating is so cute, with bulging cheeks like little hamsters. Xia Chuxiao, who possessed the ability of ear power, found it difficult not to hear it, but when she heard the last sentence, her face changed slightly in her hand, holding flesh, paused for a moment. Like a hamster. Where is it like? These people are really good at praising people. She just got hungry, ate quickly, and her mouth was full. Wow, 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 how handsome. The voice discussing her downstairs immediately spread to other people, but Xia Chuxiao ignored it and continued to fight with the food. She only had a slight reaction when she heard a familiar name. Isn't that Gong Yuhan, the second master of the Gong family? Yeah, how handsome. The flower lover said, although Gong Yi is fickle, I still like him. I heard that Gong Yi has changed his girlfriend again and even announced it. Gong Yi surprisingly came to such a place, the flower enthusiasts were immediately lost. Xia Chuxiao looked up and saw him walking towards her. Her eyes flickered, and she stared at him without realizing it. She thought to herself. How did he come, and he also knew it was, Xiao, you're being naughty. Even if you come out to play, don't call me. It wasn't until Gong Yuhan's gentle tone reached her ears that she regained consciousness. Flower enthusiasts. Oh my goodness, how gentle the second lord of the palace talks to that woman. Why are you here? Xia Chuxiao coughed a few times and asked, realizing that he was very close to her. She instinctively kept a distance from him. What is this guy doing? Find an account after autumn. Nanny. Her little move caught someone's eye. Gong Yuhan met her gaze and curled his lips with a wicked smile, saying, Xiao, why can't I come? The magnetic and pleasant almost made her lose her composure, and she was drawn in by his voice. This Gong Yuhan is really a demon, no wonder so many beautiful girls like him. Flirting people doesn't matter where they are. His beautiful and impenetrable eyes stared at him, and his handsome face approached him a bit. Xia Chuxiao half blinked her eyes, pursed her lips, and blew a hollow sentence, saying, of course you can come so tall. By the way, how did you know I was here? It's not difficult to know where a person is. After speaking, he approached and flirted, saying, besides, you're my woman. You personally recognized it. Do you want to play tricks? Xia Chuxiao's face, which had been teased by him, remained motionless as he pinched it. Her eyes were fixed on him, and she could now feel that her cheeks must have turned red. Damn it. It's just like that. After calming down, I patted his hand and naturally pushed him away, lifting my lips. That, Gong yes, speak as you please, don't move your hands or feet. Playing tricks on her is indeed such a plan. Gong Yuhan became even more reckless and said, I'm your boyfriend, and I only do things to you. Xiao, you're shy. It's a lot of talk, eating. After finishing speaking, Xia Chuxiao lowered her head to eat delicious food, lazy to pay attention to him, but still thinking to herself, what did Gong Yuhan suddenly find herself doing? Did she find something? Seeing that there has been too much noise, he gave this card, and he will definitely know how much money has been spent. Thinking of this, Xia Chuxiao's face twisted into a ball, biting her chopsticks without moving. Her every scene fell into someone's eyes, and the sharp Gong Yuhan quietly watched her changing face. His lips curled up and he lifted his hand to pick up the vegetables for her. For a moment, the two people in the restaurant, one eating and the other sandwiched, had a sweet art style that attracted people to take photos. The flower lovers were excited and almost screamed. No need for you to clip it, Xia Chuxiao refused the dishes he brought, but he was very willing to pick them up. He picked them up time and time again, but in the end, he couldn't stand them. That's all. The magnetic band with a pleasing sound rang out. Flower crazy girls. Oh my goodness. What did I see? Gong Yiri and his girlfriend are showing off their love. I ate another wave of dog food. 666, it's the first time I've seen Gong Yiri so deeply in love. Watching groups of flower-loving men and women taking photos with their phones, I had long expected this to happen, but what they said was a bit outrageous, right? What deep affection. Love. Why didn't she feel it? She just felt that he wasn't so cold. After dinner, Xia Chuxiao quickly pulled him away, but not leaving would only attract more flower lovers and men. But someone was unwilling, as if letting many people know better, to let the whole world know. Gong Yuhan looked at her slightly angry expression and felt itchy in his heart, with a smile on his eyes and a wicked smile on his face. Xiao, I haven't eaten yet. Xia Chuxiao glared at him, pursed her lips and didn't bother to talk to him. Anyway, as soon as the end of the day arrived, they went their separate ways and had nothing to do with each other. Xia Chuxiao in the car looked at the information on her phone and found that the photos of them eating just now had been uploaded online. The number of views was really high, and it was still on the rise. Look, what you've done, isn't that good? Gong Yuhan said happily. Yeah. It's quite good. Xia Chuxiao gritted her teeth and stared at him, thinking of something. A smile appeared on her face, and her eyes flashed brightly. Gong Yuhan, I haven't fully explored Hainan City yet. I heard there is a market here that has everything you need. Let's go take a look. Okay, Xia Chuxiao. Is that all, so refreshing? Since that's the case, don't blame her for being polite, ha. The two of them arrived at the market, which was like several large supermarkets pieced together, with a gorgeous and retro style. Xia Chuxiao went crazy shopping, and she didn't have to spend money anyway. Looking at the small carts of supplies, Xia Chuxiao chuckled contentedly. She didn't make many purchases, they were all supplies and the like, and continued to pick up supplies on the cart. Gong Yuhan looked at her happy expression, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, and he was not as cold as before. He knew that Chuxiao was hiding some things, and he didn't rush to ask, waiting for her to slowly tell him. Xia Chuxiao always felt like he had completely penetrated her. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Collecting Materials 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Collecting Materials for a few hours later. It wasn't until he saw that there were already as many big trucks as the things they had purchased that Gong Yuhan's face changed for a moment, and then quickly recovered. Xiao, I love buying things so much. Well, she said. Isn't her actions making him even more suspicious? She bought it for a while and it was satisfying. Xiao, if you like it, I'll buy this place and give it to you. Xia Chuxiao widened her eyes when she heard his words and blinked at him. The words, tycoon, flashed through her mind. As a result, Gong Yuhan really bought this supermarket. Xia Chuxiao looked at Gong Yuhan sitting in the driver's seat next to her, and her face became somewhat complicated. Whether or not to tell, intuition told her that even if she didn't tell, he was still guessing. I suddenly felt that he was a bit good to me. In a luxurious villa building, this villa is owned by Gong Yuhan and has an excellent geographical location. The surrounding buildings are far away and the air is fresh. After much thought, Xia Chuxiao felt like telling him something. Even when the end of the world came, she didn't want humans to disappear one by one. In the end, she walked towards a world of human extinction, leaving only a few lucky survivors. However, she couldn't create such a big battle. After all, who would believe in a worry-free life? Suddenly, when the end of the world came, she was not a Virgin Mary, so she had to leave it to him to handle. Anyway, he was a soldier, and he's far more simple than what she saw. However, she looked at Gong Yuhan, who was cooking in the kitchen, and her thoughts were confirmed in her heart. Gong Yuhan in the kitchen kept an eye on her movements from time to time. With his keen sense, he had already anticipated something and quickly walked out of the kitchen after finishing his busy schedule. This man is really handsome, even when cooking. Xia Chuxiao, who was a bit obsessed with flowers, immediately calmed down when she saw him walking in front of her, and a hint of disappointment flashed in her eyes. Unfortunately, she is not the real boyfriend. Wait, why is she lost? Her primary task now is to get rid of someone, but it's best to get rid of them in sync and save some unnecessary trouble. Gong Yuhan carefully observed her expression and then teased her, Xiao, isn't your boyfriend very handsome? Xia Chuxiao suddenly nodded in response to his question. Instantly becoming serious, he looked up at him and pursed his lips, saying, can you trust Gong Yuhan? Before asking this question, she also thought that he had a dual personality. She didn't know which side was the real him, but she was certain that he was serious and serious. She didn't know if she could trust him, and she always felt that he brought her a sense of mystery while also having a sense of security. She has no other close friends except for those from that family. Now that she thinks about it, it is that family that does not hinder her interpersonal communication. You should know that interpersonal communication is very important, and she only realized it from the moment she never forgot in the previous life. He shouldn't be the kind of person who would stab someone behind their back. Gong Yuhan, who was originally a bit mischievous, immediately changed his serious demeanor as he looked at her with a hint of softness. Then he said, Xiao, I am serious about being with you. I like you, and I don't know where to start. Perhaps from that night, you were heavier than my life for me. I believe everything you say, and I will never let you have anything to do. I will take care of you thoroughly. I want to confirm with you. Speaking of the last sentence, Gong Yu had a hint of anticipation and preparation for rejection. Is this confessing to me? Xia Chuxiao was simply mesmerized by his gentle gaze, which only had mine in her eyes. She knew what he meant, but she didn't know how to answer. She had a slight desire to agree. However, Xia Chuxiao thought of something and shook her eyes, avoiding his gaze. She moved her body slightly to maintain distance from him, and a faint smile fell on her face. Xia Chuxiao can't daydream about those messy things anymore. Xiao doesn't need to answer me now, I'll give you time to consider. Gong Yuhan keenly noticed that she was avoiding herself, and a hint of pain flashed in her heart. Xia Chuxiao secretly thought to herself, Gong Yuhan really knows how to calculate. He doesn't even give her time to refuse, and even asks her to consider. She had a hint of wanting to accept him, but when she thought about having so many women before her, and how well he had treated herself and other women like she does now, she felt disgusted and stopped wanting to accept him. She couldn't bear the fact that the person she liked had liked many women before, but she also felt that he shouldn't be like that, but she still has an indescribable feeling of heaviness and discomfort in her heart. Xia Chuxiao. Wake up. I can't be influenced by him anymore. As soon as the end of the world arrives, I will go my separate ways. Xia Chuxiao, who was affected by her emotions, didn't plan to speak anymore. She lost her mood and just greeted him before returning to her room to rest. She didn't rest well last night and had to catch up on her sleep. Gong Yuhan had already noticed her tired appearance and the dark circles around her eyes. He felt sorry for her and didn't disturb her, so he asked her to rest more. In the kitchen, tall figures were busy one after another. At night, except for the lighting in the lobby, everything else in the villa was dark. Gong Yuhan sat on the dining table and chairs with a heavy heart on his face, and there were more than 10 dishes in front of him, all of which were delicious at first glance. However, these 10 dishes remained untouched. Sitting on the dining room chair, Gong Yuhan occasionally looked at a door and sat waiting like this. I don't know when. The people in the restaurant silently left. Ah! The screams of help, help echoed from the phone. Xia Chuxiao took her phone and clicked to stop playing. She said seriously, I have already said what I need to say. Believe it or not, you can do whatever you want. I believe in you. Upon hearing his words, she lifted her gaze and met Gong Yuhan's resolute gaze, and her eyes met for a few seconds. Xia Chuxiao avoided her gaze and pursed her lips. The avoidance of her gaze made Gong Yuhan feel cold in his heart. Gong Yuhan, who never looked away from her, noticed several times that she deliberately avoided him. He clearly realized that she also had him in her eyes, so he dared to say those words to her. His original plan was to let Xiao slowly adapt to him. Why did Xiao suddenly change? Xiao, I won't give up. On the morning of the second day of the apocalypse, some people will acquire abilities, but some will become cold zombies without warmth or reason, and this is the beginning of cruelty towards humanity. Gong Yuhan, this is my ability. All the items I purchased are in the space, Xia Chuxiao said, and then told him about some of the abilities she knew, of course, just some of those she dreamed of. That's right, she fabricated a lie that she did something, and then it was the end of the world. I am the first to know. It's strange for Xia Chuxiao to hear him ask this question. Shouldn't she ask about some supernatural things or other things when she heard that I have a supernatural ability? Of course, Gong Yuhan's originally uncomfortable heart slightly improved, and his slightly dimmed eyes lit up a bit. The light swept over him, and the corners of his mouth slightly curved. Xiao, I still trust myself. Xia Chuxiao saw him suddenly burst into a silly smile, with a bewildered expression on his face. What kind of wind does Gong Yuhan draw? Xiao, as long as you have space, I know it. Don't tell anyone else, including your family, promise me. Gong Yuhan frowned and looked at her with a serious, soft, and serious expression. Xia Chuxiao half squinted her eyes and blinked, pondered for a moment, then nodded casually. Speak up. Seeing his serious expression, Xia Chuxiao blurted out and said, okay, I promise you. Wait, why did she get stuck with his words again? Xia Chuxiao, you want to pursue a high-end in cool style, and you cannot be misled by this person. Her already sweet and soft voice now moved Gong Yuhan's heart even more. Of course, she cannot casually tell others. With the lessons of her previous life, she is not that foolish. The reason why she told him was because of her intuition that he was not that kind of person. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Collecting Materials 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Collecting Materials 5. Gong Yuhan's head spun rapidly, thinking of something. He held his phone and just lifted his foot before pausing for a moment. He glanced sideways at the person gnawing on the fruit fragrance, with a hint of indulgence in his eyes. He lifted his foot and walked to the balcony outside. Xia Chuxiao didn't notice his gaze and was eating fruit while watching the latest media news. She needs to keep an eye on the news trends at all times, as the end may come at any time. Of course, she also needs to pay attention to places where anomalies occur more frequently. Today, there are 2 more cases where someone went crazy and bit someone recklessly, and was labeled by the media as, calm down. People bit people. Hee hee. It's really enough to calm down. Waiting for the end of the world to come will surprise you even more. You're all stupid. Xia Chuxiao muttered. After a while, Gong Yuhan finished the phone call from the balcony and came in, watching Xiao eat like a chicken pecking rice. His eyes softened a few times, but the sitting posture was a bit elegant and too spicy. At this moment, Xia Chuxiao was sitting on the soft and fluffy sofa, with one leg bent down and the other foot directly resting on the sofa. She shook a few times from time to time, like a careless woman. She didn't notice that her current posture was not right, and she didn't react how comfortable she felt. Finally, Gong Yuhan walked up and said, Xiao, it's not elegant for a girl to do this action. Gong Yuhan didn't let her sit like this. She could do whatever she liked, but if she also sat like this outside, he wouldn't agree. Xia Chuxiao lifted her head and looked at him, feeling a little displeased with his words. She angrily said, I feel comfortable, can you manage it? Xiao, that's not what I meant. That's not what it means, which one does it mean? I'm afraid you're outside too. Gong Yuhan frowned and said low. No, I pay close attention to my external appearance, Xia Chuxiao said, turning her head away from him and directly scrolling through her recently purchased tablet. Xiao, I don't mean that either, Gong Yuhan felt a slight misunderstanding and explained. I was thinking to myself that my esteemed son from a wealthy family was actually explaining to her, but he was happy, trapped too deeply. Love at first sight is really a drug that is difficult to quit. Gong Yuhan thought of what he was about to say earlier and said softly, Xiao, purchasing fragrances and dried seafood in the village. Although this can get through most people, it may not necessarily be the case with those high-level people. I will have someone erase the traces. Gong Yuhan's words reminded her. Yeah. How could I not have thought of it myself? In today's high-tech society, every move is controlled and recorded by the overall situation, so. Thank you, Gong Yuhan. Xia Chuxiao paused for a moment and thanked him for his improved attitude. I didn't expect him to call just now just to help him with this. People with high intelligence should consider it. Sure enough, having high intelligence makes a difference. Hey. No, I also have a high IQ. But I really appreciate him a bit sincerely, and his actions will indeed be discovered by the higher-ups. I didn't expect his reaction to be significant at all. It was the end of the world, and the world of zombies was about to begin. By the way, Gong Yuhan, I'll be back in Yangzhou tomorrow morning. You can arrange the rest as you like. Anyway, I've already told you that Xia Chuxiao thinks so, while someone doesn't. The deep voice responded. The cold aura in the hall came, but in an instant it recovered. Gong Yuhan's eyes gradually darkened, and he felt an indescribable discomfort in his heart. Xiao, I have sent someone to deliver the things you need to the building of Xingqing Fanyuan. You can go and pick them up tomorrow. So fast, Xia Chuxiao blurted out, not expecting him to handle things so quickly. Sure enough, people with broad connections and strong abilities have a high rate of handling affairs. Asking him for that weapon and equipment so quickly. But then again, this guy's whole family has military ranks, so it's normal to get one. Xiao, is there anything else you want? Upon hearing his words, Xia Chuxiao raised her eyes and their eyes met again. This time, Xia Chuxiao could see from his eyes that he was indulging him, as if he gave her everything she wanted. Gong Yuhan is still scheming for her. It seems that. No need, thank you. Gong Yuhan, let me be honest with you. I made you my boyfriend that day because I wanted to get rid of my family, so I used you. Xiao, I know, Gong Yu said coldly, interrupting her unfinished words. Next, Xia Chuxiao felt a pinch on her face and her eyes widened as she glared at someone. This bastard, they all say it's so clear. What are you trying to do with all this ambiguity? I don't care if the golden gun goes off. Xia Chuxiao's little head was spinning, thinking for a while, and suddenly a glimmer of light flashed in her eyes, and the corners of her mouth curved with a wicked smile. Since you let me take advantage of it, don't blame me. I won't take it for nothing. Yeah. I suddenly remembered that I have a small favor that I need to help you with. Of course it's just a small favor, I don't know you. Xia Chuxiao half squinted her eyes and smiled as she spoke, making a small gesture on her hand that indicated her intention. Xiao, here's this unlimited amount card for you. Gong Yuhan saw the elf's calculation and had already guessed. He handed her a black card and said. Thank you. I will repay you, Xia Chuxiao said with a smile, taking the black card and staring straight at it, his mouth curled up and his smile deepened. Ha ha ha. The taste of money. For the first time, I learned that unlimited black cards are like this. A voice pulled her back to her senses. Xiao, you really can still afford it. Upon hearing this, Xia Chuxiao blocked her laughter and paused for a moment. I can't afford it, it's okay, you see, the end of the world is coming soon. If you encounter any difficulties, I can help you. Maybe next time I'm dreaming, I might dream about your future. Can I reveal it to you? After speaking, Xia Chuxiao blinked her eyes. Her words were fine, but to be honest, she had never seen him since the end of her previous life, let alone know his future. Ha, but that's all she can say. Sorry. This handsome brother, I'm lying to you for being ignorant. Gong Yuhan's gaze flashed, he raised his gaze, and his eyebrows, eyes, and corners of his mouth twitched as he said, okay, then you can tell me what you want to buy in your itinerary next. This is yours now, there's no need to return it. Upon hearing this, Xia Chuxiao was slightly stunned for a moment. Then, her two curled eyelashes flickered and she hugged the tablet, pursed her mouth, thinking to herself, are you going to tell me or not? Forget it, considering taking such a big advantage of him, let's talk. 2 minutes later. Xia Chuxiao said again, I'm back in the room, and then reminded, you can handle the doomsday by yourself. Anyway, I have already reminded you. Neither of us owes anyone now. Farewell, oh, no, goodbye. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, he stopped him and said, wait. Xia Chuxiao stopped her steps and looked at him. The two of them stared at each other for a few seconds, and Gong Yuhan raised his eyebrows and eyes with a wicked smile, saying, I know a friend who sells cars. Do you want to take a look? End of this chapter.